unfortunately have to withdraw from the general plan meeting. I'm the
Subcommittee?
The subcommittee.
The steering committee.
Steering committee. Well, the committee in general. So, so do we need another planning commissioner on?
Well, the composition of the General Plan Update Steering Committee, as approved by the City Council, includes 3 planning commissioners, and that currently is Commissioners Troiting, Jeffrey, and Lutz. So if you withdraw from...
When, Joe? Immediately?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was my last meeting on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
So if you withdraw from the committee, then the council will need to appoint another commissioner to take your place. And I would suggest that the commission could recommend someone for the council to appoint, if you wish to do so.
Is there a commissioner that wants to... The meetings are how
frequently? Fourth Tuesday.
Once a month.
Once a month, the fourth Tuesday.
For basically 2 hours, and there's...
Same week as Planning Commission, usually, unless there's a quirk in the calendar.
Is there a commissioner that's interested in sitting in another meeting? Chris, you shook your head no.
I have my support
right
group
okay.
the fourth Tuesday of the month, so I can't go.
Oh, that's too bad.
Jennifer or Maria, are you interested? You have lots of things.
Yeah.
Explain why we had 3 commissioners. Usually we end up with, it seems like most of the steering committees, there's an audience of 2 commissioners. I'm curious why we ended up with 3, other than because the 3 commissioners wanted to sit on it.
I think it was based on numbers, and we had decided that it was best if it were less than a quorum. So there was actually more interest than
at the time.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
3 was the most we could get.
The original well, there were a lot of different permutations of this committee that were debated by the City Council. One proposal was that the entire Planning Commission and City Council jointly would form the steering committee. I think that didn't sit well with everybody, some of whom have enough meetings to attend. And it was pointed out that they are all open meetings, so all planning commissioners and council members can attend anyway if they wish. Then it was discussed that it would be a committee that would be, I think it was to be a 9-person committee, of which the majority would be elected and appointed officials. So we would have 2 council members, which is less than a quorum of that body, 3 planning commissioners, which is less than a quorum of that body, and 4 citizens, including 2 residents, 1 business person, and 1 school representative. And that is the proposal that was given to the council. But when it came time to appoint people, after debating who should be appointed, they finally decided to just appoint everybody who had applied. And that was 7 residents, 1 business person, and 1 school person, but they still left it at 3 commissioners and 2 council members. Personally, I think that's a good mix and
what
a good
that
number.
is among the electeds and appointeds, as you pointed out, it's as many as you can get without a quorum.
Right. Right. Now, it is, of course, a notice public meeting, so it really doesn't make much difference, but we don't want it to turn into a planning commission meeting or a city council meeting.
I think the point is that it would truly be an advisory committee rather than having the full voting quorums deciding that this would be it, and then it becomes a rubber stamp when it comes to the planning commission and city council.
So Jennifer, Murray said no.
I'm vice president of my homeowners association. That's the day of we meet every 4th Tuesday, same week as our planning commission meetings. I could work around that. I could try and work around that, but I couldn't verify that right now. I'd have to go back and talk.
Did you say they meet on the 4th Tuesday?
We meet on the same Tuesday of whatever this Tuesday. It's the same Tuesday
of
our planning commission.
Yeah, that's when
it's always on the same night as the steering committee meetings. Yeah.
But
I don't know how can you work around that?
No, I couldn't. It would mean changing the date, getting my homeowners association to change the date of their meeting, so I could make 2 meetings. But that would be 3 meetings in 1 week. But I can go back and talk about it with them. My guess is that it won't change just because it's been in place for so long.
But it sounds like you're interested, or you wouldn't have mentioned it.
Yeah.
This is kind of, it's surprise. This is a surprise, so I need to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I might, or maybe we could share.
I know. Share a position.
I'm not sure the council would go for that.
Okay. Well,
I don't think so either.
Jennifer, you'll check,
Mm-hmm.
see whether it's possible, and then I'll think about whether I want to commit more.
Time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't you think about it, get back to me, and we'll, when you've got a recommendation, we'll forward it to the city council.
Okay.
Hopefully, it won't be too far in the future. The next steering committee meeting.
They have the tour
they
this
had one.
Saturday.
Well, yeah, right. But I mean, the next regular meeting is April 26th. And the city council, of course, meets on the first and third Tuesdays, so that's April 5th and April 19th. So there's 2 council meetings between now and the next steering committee. So if you want to let me know, actually, if you can let me know by the end of the first week in April, then I can get something on the April 19th council meeting. That would be in time for the April 26th steering committee meeting.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world if we went for 1 month with, a vacant seat on the committee, but it would be better not to do that.
Okay.
And if I can make one more comment, although I wasn't able to make this particular one, this APA conference, I have been to others. And one of the things I will say is that our planning commission, the group that we have here, and I think Charlie will agree, is an incredible group. We have a tremendous spectrum of opinion and thought and expertise, and there's a lot of respect, and that's unique, I think, in a lot of things. And Charlie, I don't know what your experience is.
I absolutely agree.
It's absolutely I've worked for a number of cities, and certainly this is the most thoughtful and courteous planning commission and city council, for that matter, that I've ever worked with.
So, good.
You guys are the best.
You have my
On that note.
Guess you paid for
Meeting
dinner.
adjourned.
Yeah.
What was that, Monday night?
Did,
Other commissioner comments? Because I do have 2. Anyone else? Let's do the easy one first. Hearing all these planning commissioners, one after another, session after session, talk about different ways of dealing with their bylaws, and the question of whether we even have bylaws, the question of ethics, and whether we have an ethics policy and an ethics program, concerns about even talking to an applicant or to residents before you hear an application. What I heard in one session from a planner, in another session from an attorney, and in a third session from 2 planning commissioners, but a group of people, is those are things that are not done by practice in other jurisdictions. And so in my mind, it raised a question about, well, how do we do things in Emeryville, and is it written down, and how can we make it clearer? And what I'd like to suggest is, the other thing I heard, and actually read in our little Bible, is the importance of assessing. We just talked about how great we are, but we've also talked about sort of repeated issues like undergrounding and variance that I've raised many, many times. How we deal with an applicant who comes in and says, I can't afford this. How do we deal with economic factors? And so what I'd like to suggest is that we actually have a special meeting where we get staff to report back to us on our bylaws, wherever they are, or if we have them, whether we have an ethics policy, And if not, where is that typically done? What's okay or what isn't okay in terms of contact? And then once we get a little more educated, maybe on an annual basis, then have an open discussion about the issues that we all see. What are our shortcomings as a commission? Where are our strengths? And, maybe set some goals. And I like the idea of having an annual meeting where we get together. It's agendized so we can talk openly, not about a specific project, but about issues that keep surfacing. And maybe the meeting will last an hour. Maybe it'll last 4 hours. But, yeah, we've talked about doing this. So my suggestion is we actually set a tentative date. And what I wanted to suggest is maybe an alternative Thursday, like, I think I actually, maybe Thursday, May 12th, which is...
I will be out of town.
Okay. I'd kind of like to do it before June, but does someone have an alternative? I just thought we should stick to a Thursday. That's sort of our night. Do people like the idea of getting together and having?
It's like a
discussion?
commission retreat.
Yeah.
Well, and just to make sure we get this, and because Charlie, I don't know if we have to have the council in this, but we talked about the economic issues, which is a really, really tough one for us to deal with, and also our plans for undergrounding. I mean, how do we really start attacking that particular issue, because that's another big one. But some of these other issues. So, Charlie, this can just be a notice meeting, and it could be the Planning Commission by itself?
Sure.
Okay.
You can have a special meeting.
Well, how about Thursday, May 5th?
I'll be out of town.
Where the hell are you going?
I'll be back these for 2 weeks.
Okay.
On the 4th.
I will be
Returning
out
on
of
the
town, too,
17th.
on the 5th.
And it's the city attorney's conference.
Okay.
Also.
You don't need to be there.
Oh,
Thursday the
it's special meeting?
26th is our planning commission meeting.
I'm excused. I'm fine.
I will be in Italy
Make all
for
kinds
the
of legal
first part of June.
decisions.
Okay. For like
That's awesome.
for the whole month?
2
or-
weeks.
Okay. Well, I just think we need to try to set some. If we don't set a date,
Yeah,
the date will fill in.
I'd sure like to get it
So
in
if
May,
people haven't-
sometime in May.
Is there a reason why you want to do it before June?
The only reason is that we shift chair, and so I just thought it would be appropriate if this becomes an annual thing that the chair be in a role where they could say, these are the issues that I faced as a chair, rather than a new chairperson coming in at the beginning of their seat.
Well, I think it would be at your June meeting where you would elect your new chair.
Okay.
And that would,
So then we have all through
we
June.
have all-
that would be June 28th. So as long as you did it before June 28th.
I'm fine. We're having fun.
So you're going to be back from Italy on what? Will you be back by the 16th?
No.
Oh. Well, see, then the commission meeting's on the 23rd of June.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong. You're right, 23rd of June. 28th is the steering committee.
What about doing it on an alternate day? It seems like that's what we could do.
In May, if we can do it.
Oh, like May or June 1st? You're leaving on June 1st?
I'm
Not
not-
2 weeks.
I-
There's 2 weeks.
Well, let me take a look at when I.
Well, how
I think
about
I'm-
Wednesday?
I think I'm actually on the 5th, but I'll check.
Commissioner Trading, I believe you will be back by May 19th.
I will be back by May 19th. I come back on May 17th.
How about Wednesday, May 25th? Is Wednesday night bad for anyone?
Well, it's the,
And when is the planning commission
The
meeting?
next night.
I would
oh,
say,
that's true. I'm sorry.
and the
No, we
steering
don't wanna
committee
do
is the
that.
night before.
Boom, boom, boom.
But what about Thursday, May 19th?
Thursday, May 19th?
Yes.
Are you around? Somehow. And you're around?
Be back?
Are you going to be able to? Is this too much for you to be able to
Probably.
summarize the policy, bylaws, and ethics Yeah, and I think you were at that session as well.
One thing I do want to, the Planning Commission handbook has an extensive discussion on ethics that you were all given. And so I would,
This one,
is that the, yes.
the job of the planning commissioner.
Is that
We
the-
actually have two, and we have a more recent one that you gave us this year,
I think
which
it's-
is more general. It's more on process and
But it does have a section on ethics
Right.
and that you're in a quasi-adjudicatory role. And so you have to, you have to base your decisions on
Right.
evidence that you receive in a hearing. And
But there are questions that we come up against that aren't answered by the book.
Right.
And this we'd like to.
be able to ask you.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what's the latest practice? Why are all these planning commissioners telling us we're not supposed to be talking to
And then-
an applicant at
well,
all?
I'm curious if what cities they're from, if they're from California.
Santa Clara,
Yeah.
San Diego,
Okay.
and I
And
don't
out of
remember.
state, but there were several that were within state.
Right.
as
Yeah.
well. And one of the questions that didn't come up, but that occurred to me in all of that discussion, is okay. I understand what they're saying about kind of one-on-one meetings, whether with an applicant or whether with a neighbor or a resident. But in other meetings, we've heard and we've begun to make it a practice in Emeryville here. Thank you. Encouraging neighborhood community meetings. And obviously neighborhood community meetings are, certainly open to anyone. The question then becomes, since it is a meeting of a lot of people, and it's, although not necessarily publicly noticed, it is, a publicly, attendable meeting, whether there is a difference. And I don't have an answer for this. I have a question about it, whether it's appropriate to go, and if one goes, whether it's appropriate to make comments or whether one should just sit quietly and listen.
Right, and you see now this conversation that we're having, if we had it in the notice meeting,
Right.
because I have another add-on to what Ed has, and I don't want to go into it now, but I mean, it
Right.
just extends on to saying, okay, here's my conundrum.
Right.
I.e., if you have commissioners there in the meeting, and then you have one in the
No.
audience.
I think we can certainly explore these things in terms of, and we could come up with a bright line rule saying, no, don't do this. But I don't know that bright line rule fulfills anyone's purposes in terms of, especially in a small town. So I think in terms of, I think we can we'll look and see what other cities are doing and what kind of guidelines they have for their planning commissioners. But in terms of, honestly, the compass should be that can I be an unbiased decision maker, and that's really should be what are you becoming an advocate or are you fulfilling your role as a decision maker, and that's what you should keep in mind. And if you don't think that you can if you don't think you can be unbiased because you have such strong opinions about a particular project or such, then that's whether you should recuse yourself or not. And those are kind of the guidelines. I think that's generally the discussion that's in your planning commissioner's handbook that discusses, I think bias is one, and then there's the 500-foot rule when you just have a conflict under the law or a financial interest under the law. So those are sort of the guidelines, and it's a discussion we can have in terms of crafting a bright line rule that's going to guide you through all of these situations.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily even want it in writing, but I
Okay.
think if we get updated,
Yeah,
so we
right.
know, what the state of the
comfort
art
levels
is
increase,
in terms
yes.
of
No, and
procedure. It makes sense to me. We kind of step into this role, and everyone sort of assumes we automatically know what we're doing.
No.
Well, frankly, I learn something every meeting.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
The thing that,
I still do.
that you made Jim know about, I don't know that we necessarily want it in writing. I think that there's a couple of approaches in that as well, and it's like, one can write rules or one can write guidelines. And the idea of guidelines that can be, to a degree flexible, but that are at least written, can help institutionalize the practice so that, as the body changes over time, there remains a certain consistency without having to go back and have the same discussion and reinvent the wheel over and over again. But not so rigid that they are the bright line.
Right, and I certainly, I can, and I haven't looked. I can look and see what other cities have. I mean, one of the things that has actually been on my plate for some time is that we would like the Planning Commission, I think the City Council actually needs to adopt them, but it would come to the Planning Commission, is to adopt the same rules of conduct that the City Council has, that there be, which basically just sets up parameters for how meetings are handled and the decorum and that type of thing. So that's certainly been on my project list, and so this is something, it fits neatly into that.
So we're talking Thursday,
May 19th.
May 19th.
May 19th.
Let's do 6:30 p.m.
Sure.
and just assume we'll wrap it
Yeah.
up by 9.
And I don't think, and I certainly don't think that
The next
once-
morning or the following morning?
Right.
If we need to continue it for another meeting, that's a
Well,
different
and
issue.
I was going to say that I don't think once a year is going to be enough for us.
Well, let's start and see how it
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
because there may be a lot. Okay, last comment.